recently you got diagnosed with leukemia.
It's true.
Before we get into the details of what leukemia is, let's talk about how you found out you have leukemia, because it's kind of a funny story. I don't know how detailed you want to get, but tell us how that happened.
Bet. So, yeah, how do we find? So I was just having a lot of weird physical things kind of go on, and one of them was like I had diarrhea for like a month straight.
If you got diarrhea for longer than 2 weeks, go get checked out.
But I don't know. I never like thought anything of it. Like when I get sick, I usually like push through it. I go to work, whatever. So I'm not really thinking that much of it. And it wasn't until the end of the month that I was like, I just had diarrhea for a whole month.
Yeah.
And then I like looked it up. We WebMD'd it or whatever with the homies, John Keith and Zach Sprazzo. And then it came up like, oh, you might possibly have a type of cancer. And I was like,
crazy.
But WebMD always be saying that, bro. Everything is cancer, bro.
Yo, WebMD most times will have you freaking out.
That's a fact.
But this time, WebMD was clutch and nailed it.
They were mad right. So then we're just joking about it, like, oh, T-Ross got cancer. And then some stuff starts happening for a couple weeks. I'm getting headaches every day, and this just not like I'm getting weak every night, like having trouble going upstairs. And I'm thinking like I don't want to hang out with anybody. And I'm thinking like, yo, this has to be something. And we're joking every night like about having cancer, whatever, like, oh, T-Ross the Giant got cancer. But we all think like he doesn't really have cancer.
Sure.
And then I'm like, you know what, let me just go to the doctor, see what's good. Go to the doctor, I did some blood work. I go home, I call out of work because I'm just feeling weak and tired. And I take a nap and I wake up and I get a phone call from my doctor and she's like, hey, we think you might have leukemia. We need you to get to the ER like ASAP.
Crazy. Now to provide some context, when you told me you weren't feeling well, I was like, oh, you probably just got the flu. And then you guys were like, no. He's had diarrhea for a month straight, and these are not. There's no flu-like symptoms besides him just being tired. You know what I mean? You didn't have a cold. Your throat didn't hurt. So, I mean, first of all, I think if anybody has diarrhea for that long and then is feeling the way you felt, probably an instant indicator that something is off and you need to go. True. Is it fair to say that because of WebMD and you were diligent, that you essentially caught it early?
Yeah, so I have a type of leukemia called acute myeloid leukemia, and basically it's just extra fast acting, it's aggressive, and so if you don't catch it early, you kind of don't make it. Like it's a very, very aggressive, you got to catch it pretty quick, and so I guess we caught it fairly early, but it moves so fast that early doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's just late means a lot.
Yeah, so you catch it, you go to the emergency room, they find out you have it. What is leukemia? Like, what is it actually doing? Because it has something to do with too many white blood cells. True. Right? And then we can kind of get into the treatment of what actually it does.
Right. So there's a few different types of leukemia. Mine specifically, basically, I have in my bone marrow, it is producing like exponentially way more white blood cells than I need, but they're all faulty white blood cells that have.
So they're bad white blood cells.
Right. And they're producing some like extra or bad faulty red and red blood cells and platelets as well. But for the most part, it's in the white blood cells that they're worried about.
So your white blood cells are too high.
Too high.
And if it goes on and they don't detect it, whoever has this type of leukemia basically dies.
Pretty much.
So then when you got into the hospital, tell me what that process was like, because you find out, you go to the emergency room, and then what? Did they just straight rush you to, because you were like at a cancer treatment facility in La Jolla.
Right.
What was the sequence and the timeline there?
So I got the phone call, I head to the ER, so I'm like, bet, I hop in the whip, go to the ER, I meet my mom and my girl, and we're sitting in the ER for a couple hours. They're taking blood, whatever, and we're sitting there thinking, I don't actually have leukemia. You know what I mean? We're just thinking like, there's no way I actually have it.
They have to do more tests on top.
They got to do more tests. They just want to be super sure before anything. And then, we're at the ER a couple hours. Doctor comes in. He's like, yeah, like everything is screaming leukemia. Like it looks like you got it. He's like, we need it. And you have an aggressive type. He's like, we need to transfer you like now. So he's like, the ambulance is outside. Like, we got to go.
So they're rushing you to the La Jolla is that where you went straight from the ER there?
Straight from the ER to La Jolla.
And what happens now when you get to this facility?
I get to the facility and they're like, look, this is basically what you have. You have an aggressive type of leukemia. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you on pre-chemo pills tonight to try to start lowering your white blood count, and we will start chemo, I think, the next day, maybe one day after. Yeah, two days after. I got to admit it. We officially started chemo. Did chemo for 7 days, and then I had to wait for my immune system to go back up for 3 weeks.
So the chemo is killing off all your white blood cells.
True.
So your immune system is shot. So I remember when we was going to visit you, like you had to wash the hands. There was the hand sanitizing stuff around.
True.
We couldn't cross-contaminate food. Like it was very strict. And then they're killing all that off. So you were saying that, like, tell me what it was like going through the chemo, the 7 days of chemo.
What it's like going through the chemo? So going through the chemo, the 7 days you're on it isn't actually as bad as what comes after it, because in my scenario, the chemo basically just kills off white blood cells slowly, and a little bit of platelets and things too. And so by the end of the 7 days is when it officially like hits zero. So then I have no immune system. I'm just easily susceptible to everything. I start getting kind of sick. I specifically had a bunch of mouth sores that made it really difficult to eat.
I remember you saying that was like the worst part of it.
That was the worst part for me.
Something so random could be the most painful. Right.
Yeah, that was a trip too, because I'm thinking like this nausea about to be crazy, this throwing up about to be crazy, and God really like had his hand on me and blessed that situation. I didn't really have all the nausea and the throwing up as much, but those mouth sores were like hell. Terrible.
So you do 7 days.
True.
The 7 days of actual chemo aren't super bad.
Not too bad.
But then the aftermath of the chemo, of having your immune system completely depleted,
True.
was crazy. Like I remember I came in one day and your eye was swollen, and I was like, what happened?